Hinduism is the most influential religion in modern India and the third largest religion in the world. The ancient traditions that gave rise to Hinduism have shaped Indian life and societies in other parts of the world. This way of life has affected numerous religious practices and even daily routines like diet and exercise. Hinduism has inspired art and literature, as well as leaders and thinkers from around the world. Hinduism is even the foundation for yoga. We'll discuss these words in more detail later, but here's a brief overview of some of the important concepts in Hinduism. Deities. These are gods and goddesses. Some experts think there are over 300 million deities in Hinduism. Brahman. Brahman is the supreme force in the universe. It's not the same thing as the monotheistic concept of God. It's more like a spirit, a power, a force, an energy, something like that makes up everything. Dharma. Dharma is your religious responsibilities and obligations in Hinduism. Some are tied to your social rank, your caste, and others are more universal. Karma. Karma is the total of all the good and bad things you do in your life. It results in either positive or negative outcomes in the future. Samsara. Samsara is the cycle of life, death, and reincarnation that happens to every soul. It only ends when the soul reaches moksha and becomes one with Brahman. No single person founded Hinduism. Beginning in the Indus River Valley and spreading throughout India, Hinduism developed over thousands of years as a collection of traditions. Some scholars suggest that in the 2nd millennium BCE or earlier, groups of nomadic people speaking an Indo-European language migrated into northern India. These nomads, sometimes called Aryans, brought to India their gods and rituals, some of which eventually became part of Hinduism. Other scholars believe Hinduism developed from within India among native groups. Hinduism drew on local traditions, which, over thousands of years, allowed a wide range of practices and beliefs to arise in different parts of India. The roots of Hinduism are found in the Vedas, which most Hindus believe contain eternal truths. The Vedas are a collection of sacred texts, including verses, hymns, prayers, and teachings composed in Sanskrit. Veda is Sanskrit for knowledge. The understanding of the Vedas expanded over centuries in India, as the teachings of the Vedas were handed down orally from generation to generation, before India had a written form of Sanskrit. Centuries later, this understanding spread to other parts of Asia, particularly Southeast Asia, where its influence is still present today in countries such as Indonesia, Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Vedic culture includes rituals and sacrifices that honor a number of deities associated with nature. Over time, these rituals became more complex. Priests and religious scholars called Brahmins grew increasingly important. They were responsible for interpreting the Vedas, performing the necessary rituals, and teaching the Vedas to future generations. The religion itself was not called Hinduism until much later, and over the years, it has been known as Sanatana Dharma and Brahmanism. As Hinduism continued to grow and change, its teachings influenced the shape of Indian society. In fact, the development of India's social structure was loosely based on the principles found in Hinduism. Early Hinduism viewed society as a sum of equal parts. The Vedas describe 4 main social classes, or varnas, necessary to the functioning society. At the top were Brahmins, who are priests. Below them were Kshatriyas, which are kings, rulers, and warriors. Vaishyas were below them, merchants, craftsmen, landowners, etc. Sudras were farm workers or unskilled workers and servants, and below everyone else, not even part of the caste system, outcasts, were the Dalits, the untouchables. These were people who did jobs that were seen as so low, they weren't even part of society. According to the Vedas, each varna or caste had its own duties according to one's talent or natural calling. For example, Brahmins studied and taught the Vedas. Warriors had a duty to become skilled with weapons. Separate from the idea of the 4 varnas was the existence of social groups called jatis. Jatis developed as Indian society shifted away from herding and hunting to other occupations. Each jati was generally associated with a particular job. Over the centuries, the number of jatis grew, and their place in the social hierarchy became very important and complex. The jatis were based on one's occupation or job, as well as birth, unlike the varnas. In time, different jatis became associated with the four broader varnas. Eventually, jatis became more rigid, evolving into what is called the caste system. Hindu reformers like Indian freedom leader Mahatma Gandhi criticized the idea of hierarchy and discrimination within the caste system, arguing that it had no place in Indian society and did not fit with Hindu teachings. Every jati usually had its own lifestyle, occupations, customs, and traditions, and rules about social interaction. Over time, certain groups became excluded because they did work that other Indians were unwilling to do or were considered lowly, like handling garbage or dead animals. People from these jatis were often not allowed to enter the houses of worship or attend many schools. They were often referred to as untouchables. Today, while caste discrimination is illegal in India, it continues to exist in some parts of the country. Many scholars point out that caste practices are not as prevalent in urban areas in India, and that very few people of Indian descent living outside of the Indian subcontinent still identify by caste.